Okay, here on the basement, we went ahead and excavated the basement back a little farther than what we originally planned, but you can see we have an open area we're going to make for the two-car garage, and then back here we have a crawl space. These basement walls are all filled with concrete. Now we've taken into consideration of poured concrete walls, styrofoam concrete walls. We've also the preformed concrete walls. I've always found it's always cheaper to stick with block, even if you're going to finish off the interior. It just happens to work out that way cost-wise. Yes, some of these other things are a little bit more convenient, but for this particular project, we felt it's best because it's just a basic garage. We went 12 foot high on our basement wall because we had to have plenty of headroom once we set the beams. If you see the slots in there for the beams, we've got two steel beams that are going to go crosswise on this house, so when the house sits down on it, it carries the load. We did get an engineer to go ahead and calculate the numbers to make sure we get the right size beam. Normally, when you set a modular, the beam will go down the marriage line from front to back, opposed to side. But what happened on this one was where we want to move the garage door opener and put in a stairwell going up, we didn't want to have that steel beam in the way. It would be in the way, but going this way allows for the stairwell going up to the modular. With all these walls poured with concrete makes it's basically a retaining wall, and it keeps your soil from caving in the concrete wall. Back here on this particular one, we've got a 48-inch footer that's underneath it. We got about 2 feet in the front and 3 feet in the back, and this sits in the middle, and it's got a lot of rebar, a lot of different types of rebar, and the rebar goes up through the basement wall and also goes with the block. Every other block has rebar in it. That goes all the way around on this basement, and that includes the front. So this is a very solid basement. It takes a lot of weight. And this has to be, because this is a retaining wall, we have filled in this. You've got dirt back in this crawl space that's going to put pressure on that wall, but we've done enough engineering that it's not going to affect it. Then if you look back on this back wall here, where we've cut out the soil, we're going to have to put another retaining wall back on this one. Now what happens is when you do the retaining wall on this, we're going to have a 48-inch footer, and then you have to have what they call a 2-to-1 slope coming down, because this is in a slope building area, and the slope building area requires retaining walls and engineering. The neat thing about this piece of property is when we excavated the property, and if you look at all the soil, there was not a single rock in this soil, which, you know, mountain property is kind of different. Sometimes you get some, sometimes you get a little. Very rarely do you get none. Basically, this is sediment that has settled in this little holler in Boone, North Carolina, and has settled over hundreds and hundreds of years. And so there's no rock in it whatsoever, and it's really very fertile soil. So we really got fortunate that we didn't have to break any rock. I was kind of hoping for rock, because then I wouldn't have to put as much retaining wall in, or we could anchor into the rock. So we're going to do that in the back here. We've also made some adjustments as far as how we want to do our slope here and on the property line. We can do a retaining wall that's going to be 10 foot tall back here up to the setbacks of your property line, and you want to pay attention to that. Each county, each city has different codes. Up to the setback, so I have the property line, I have a setback to where the house needs to be, sides, front, and rear, and then you have where the house goes. In Boone, they're stating that you cannot have more than a 4-foot retaining wall from the setback to the property line. So my 10-foot wall is going to have to drop down and go to 4 feet on both sides. And you can see over there, we're going to have to pull in some of that soil once that 4 feet gets in. So those are issues that you have to consider in a slope building area. Actually, we don't necessarily like building this on a slope building area because it is more expensive. It did cost a lot of money to excavate this and truck the soil out. So that's one thing. You make sure you crunch your numbers, make sure you've got a market that will absorb the price of the house that you're going to do. We're setting this up where appraisal was $425,000 for the house once it was set up. Actually it was just on a crawl space. Now that we've added the basement, we're doing some other things on the decks, and we think we'll have a higher value. The resale value right here in Boone is doing extremely well. Being 2 blocks from Appalachian State University, we figured that a couple was going to buy this house for their children, have them live in it for 4 years, and they resell it after 4 years. That is the trend that we have up here in Boone, North Carolina.